Hidden within the complex tapestry of North American history lies the profound narrative of a people whose resilience has outlasted empires, colonial displacement, and the relentless march of time. They are a nation, primarily known to history through the exonyms applied to them by outsiders, yet their true identity remains deeply rooted in the river valleys and mountainous corridors of the Eastern Woodlands. They are the Tutelo, a Northern Siouan-speaking Indigenous group whose historical trajectory reflects the complex, often tragic, yet ultimately triumphant dynamics of adaptation and cultural survival in North America. Long before the arrival of European explorers, the ancestral homelands of these people encompassed the upper Ohio River Valley. In their native dialect, a branch of the Ohio Valley Siouan language family, this vast, ecologically diverse territory was known as Okahuk Amai, translating directly to the land of all lands. It was here, along the banks of the Big Sandy River, which they referred to as the Tutelo River, that their earliest known communities thrived. Archaeological and anthropological evidence suggests that these Eastern Siouan populations maintained deep ancestral connections to the sophisticated mound-building cultures of the region, specifically the Adena complex, dating from 500 to 100 BCE, and the later Fort Ancient culture, which flourished from 1000 to 1750 CE. The historical record is fraught with linguistic complexities and colonial misunderstandings. The primary autonym, the name the people used to identify themselves, is Yesong, which has been transcribed variously as Yeson, Yesa, Yesong, or Yesasahi. The name Tutelo, along with historical variations such as Totoro, Tutelars, Todorocrone, and Katera, is an exonym of unclear etymology. It is widely theorized by linguists and historians to have been derived from a southern indigenous language, or perhaps applied to them by the Iroquoian-speaking peoples who encountered them during periods of intense regional conflict. Throughout the 17th century, European colonial records frequently grouped the Tutelo with closely related Siouan neighbors, such as the Saponi, Occaneechi, Monacan, and Monahanoak nations. Together, the Tutelo and Saponi were often collectively referred to as the Nihisan, a term that appears in early colonial documentation alongside variations like Monahasanao, as famously recorded by Captain John Smith. Furthermore, 17th century French cartographic materials identified them as the Oniasant, a term some amateur historians theorize may have been linked to Iroquoian dialects rather than Siouan. The pre-contact ecology of the Okahuk Amai dictated a highly localized, sustainable subsistence strategy that expertly balanced agrarian practices with complex foraging and hunting networks. Early colonial observers who eventually encountered the Tutelo described them as possessing incredibly robust physiques, a trait directly attributed to a protein-rich diet. Their territory was teeming with megafauna, providing an abundance of elk, bears, and bison, along with various species of deer. The geographical isolation of the deep Appalachian valleys provided a degree of natural fortification, yet the Tutelo were highly integrated into the shifting regional dynamics of the Eastern Woodlands. This era of demographic and ecological stability was violently ruptured during the mid-17th century by a geopolitical catastrophe known as the Beaver Wars. Driven by the highly lucrative European fur trade and armed with newly acquired European firearms, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, particularly the Seneca and other Western Iroquois nations, launched expansive military campaigns into the Ohio Valley. Their objective was singular: to monopolize the region's hunting grounds and secure captive populations to replenish their own ranks. This immense geopolitical pressure created a shatter zone, forcing the Tutelo, along with the Susquehannock, Erie, and other Siouan-speaking tribes, to abandon their ancestral territories near the Big Sandy River. Seeking refuge from the relentless Iroquoian incursions, the Tutelo embarked on a profound migration eastward, crossing the formidable Blue Ridge Mountains to settle in the Piedmont regions of Virginia and North Carolina. This migration marked a period of severe demographic contraction and forced the Tutelo to a strategy of tribal consolidation. By the late 17th century, the Tutelo territory had shifted entirely, encompassing lands stretching from the Roanoke River near modern-day Salem, Virginia, eastward toward Lynchburg, directly bordering the domains of the Monacan. It was during this volatile era that the Tutelo first entered the written historical record of English colonists. In 1670, the German physician and explorer John Lederer traversed the Piedmont, documenting the presence of the Saponi on the Roanoke River and interacting with the Occaneechi. The following year, in 1671, the Bats and Follum expedition formally documented the Tutelo at a specific settlement called Shamokin in Virginia. However, the Piedmont region was a highly dangerous frontier. The Tutelo and their allies found themselves caught in an unforgiving geopolitical vice. They were subjected to ongoing raids from the northern Iroquois, threatened by the Cherokee and Catawba advancing from the south, pressed by the Shawnee to the west, and increasingly encroached upon by aggressive English colonial expansion from the eastern Tidwater settlements. Furthermore, the introduction of novel Eurasian pathogens caused devastating epidemics that decimated the populations of the Virginia Siouan tribes. To ensure collective survival, the Tutelo allied tightly with the Saponi, also known historically as the Manazukapanaw, and the Occaneechi. The Occaneechi maintained a highly strategic and lucrative trading hub on an island in the Roanoke River, situated along a vital pre-colonial trade network known as the Great Trading Path, which connected the Piedmont with the Blue Ridges and the coastal plains. Between 1671 and 1701, the Tutelo entirely abandoned their western homelands and merged their settlements with the Occaneechi and Saponi to aggregate their defensive capabilities. Archaeological evidence from the New River area, including specific ceramic sherds and small triangular projectile points, substantiates a mid to late 16th or early 17th century occupation before this final eastward consolidation. Despite the persistent external pressures, the internal socio-political organization and material culture of the Tutelo remained highly sophisticated, defined by a deep adaptation to the seasonal extremes of the Appalachian and Piedmont environments. The traditional Tutelo shelter primarily consisted of wickiups and longhouses. The wickiup, an Algonquin-derived term referring to a dome-shaped dwelling, was a masterclass in structural engineering using natural materials. The construction utilized a sturdy framework of tall saplings, typically measuring 2 to 3 inches in diameter. These saplings were driven deep into post holes in the earth, bent inward under high tension, and lashed together at the apex to form a dome. The resulting structure, typically spanning 20 to 25 feet in diameter, was then intricately covered with overlapping panels of elm or birch bark, as well as woven rush mats. The interior was lined with thick animal furs to provide superior thermal insulation against harsh winters. This architectural design was not only structurally resilient against severe winds, but also facilitated communal living and efficient thermal dynamics around a central hearth. Clothing and personal adornment were meticulously crafted from the surrounding fauna. The Tutelo relied heavily on the hides of elk, deer, and bison. Women traditionally wore carefully tanned skirts and leggings, while men utilized breechcloths, adopting heavier hide cloaks during the colder months. Religious ceremonies and specific social functions required specialized regalia, including elaborate headrests, dance shawls, and garments heavily decorated with flattened, dyed porcupine quills, animal teeth, bird claws, and natural mineral dyes. Baisley body art and face painting held profound spiritual and social significance within the broader Eastern Woodland cultural matrix. Utilizing pigments derived from clay, minerals, and plant matter, facial designs were utilized as protective talismans, indicators of clan affiliation, and markers of martial or spiritual status. The traditional Tutelo diet was a highly sophisticated synthesis of agriculture, foraging, and hunting. As an agrarian society, they cultivated the three sisters: corn, beans, and squash. This was not mere farming, it was a highly symbiotic bioengineering strategy. The corn provided a structural trellis, the beans fixed essential nitrogen into the depleted soil, and the broad leaves of the squash created a microclimate that retained moisture and suppressed invasive weeds. This staple was supplemented by the gathering of highly nutritious wild flora, including acorns that were processed into flour and various berries and nuts. This deep agricultural legacy is actively being preserved today through ethnobotanical repatriation projects. At Virginia Tech, the Tutelo Friendship Garden successfully grows Tutelo Monacan strawberry corn. This distinct, vibrant crop is part of a sea exchange repatriation initiative designed to return ancestral seeds to their homelands, allowing the crop to readapt to the local Appalachian terroir, highlighting the enduring connection between food sovereignty, ecology, and cultural memory. Despite their sophisticated agricultural and defensive strategies, the collective migration continued as regional pressures intensified. By 1701, the Tutelo were recorded as having relocated southward to the headwaters of the Yadkin River in western North Carolina. However, this settlement proved temporary. In an attempt to stabilize the violent frontier, Virginia's Lieutenant Governor Alexander Spotswood established Fort Christanna in Brunswick County, Virginia, around 1714. The Tutelo, Saponi, and Occaneechi settled at a village called Junkatapers near the fort. Fort Christanna was designed as a tributary reservation system intended to provide the affiliated tribes with military protection and to facilitate their assimilation through an established Indian school. The protection afforded by Fort Christanna was inherently fragile, and the Tutelo continued to suffer from colonial encroachment. A significant turning point occurred with the Treaty of Albany in 1722, which established a formal peace between the Haudenosaunee Confederacy and the tributary tribes of Virginia. This diplomatic resolution fundamentally altered the geopolitical landscape. Throughout the 1730s, remnants of the Tutelo, Saponi, and Occaneechi commenced a systematic migration northward, eventually seeking the protection of the Oneida Viceroy Shikellamy and Shamokin, Pennsylvania. The socio-cultural dynamics of this northern migration are preserved in a profound piece of Tutelo oral tradition, specifically through the Scout myth, which details their initial encounters with the Cayuga Nation. According to this oral history, Tutelo scouts, tasked with locating safe settlements by tracking campfire smoke, utilized a spiritual or metaphorical transformation, reportedly turning into mice to travel undetected beneath the forest leaves, avoiding hostile forces. Upon reaching a safe vantage point, they would resume human form to climb trees and survey the landscape. During one such reconnaissance mission, the scouts were discovered by the Cayuga. Demonstrating peaceful intentions, the Cayuga invited the scouts into their settlement. The scouts subsequently learned the Cayuga language and returned south to guide their families northward. The tradition notes a moment of profound cross-cultural misunderstanding. Upon building a log camp among the Cayuga, the Tutelo established a highly defensive sleeping arrangement, arranged like the spokes of a wheel, feet to the fire, with children in the center, women next, and men on the outer perimeter guarding the camp. One night, the Tutelo overheard a Cayuga and Seneca council meeting. Due to a linguistic barrier, the Tutelo misinterpreted the Iroquoian dialogue, believing the council was stating the Tutelo are good to eat, thereby suspecting a plot of cannibalism. In reality, the council was formally discussing the legal and political framework for the Tutelo's permanent adoption into the Confederacy. In 1753, the Cayuga Nation formally sponsored the Tutelo, granting them full membership and sanctuary within the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. Within the complex political architecture of the Iroquois League, the Confederacy welcomed various displaced nations as props to the Longhouse. Like the Tuscarora and the Delaware, the Tutelo submitted their political issues through the Cayuga, who acted as their intermediary within the Grand Council, representing a masterful execution of indigenous diplomacy that integrated former enemies into a unified political body. Following their formal adoption, the Tutelo established a substantial settlement known as Cor Yorganel. Situated in the Inlet Valley just south of present-day Ithaca, New York, near the junction of modern state routes 13 and 13A along the Cayuga Inlet, the village represented a period of relative stability and agricultural prosperity for the displaced nation. Corriorganell was a highly organized agricultural community consisting of approximately 25 to 30 houses. The landscape was extensively managed, featuring large farm fields and cultivated orchards, demonstrating the Tutelo's mastery of Eastern Woodland agrarian practices. However, the geopolitical neutrality of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy fractured during the American Revolutionary War. Because elements of the Confederacy allied with the British Crown, the newly formed United States military apparatus targeted the region for total war. In 1779, General George Washington ordered the Sullivan-Clinton Expedition, a brutal, scorched earth campaign designed to eradicate Native American opposition and destroy the agricultural foundation of the Six Nations. On September 25 and 26, 1779, a detachment commanded by Colonel Henry Dearborn descended upon Corriorganell. Having received advance warning, the Tutelo residents had already evacuated the village, fleeing northward. According to Dearborn's military diary, his regiment spent from 9 a.m. to sunset methodically burning the 25 to 30 structures and systematically destroying the surrounding crop fields and orchards. Corriorganell was one of 40 indigenous villages annihilated in the Finger Lakes region during the campaign. The destruction of Corriorganell forced the Tutelo into their final major historical migration. Alongside their Cayuga sponsors and other displaced Haudenosaunee loyalists, the Tutelo fled to Upper Canada, where the British Crown granted them a large tract of land, known today as the Six Nations of the Grand River Reserve in Ontario. The site of Corriorganell remained archaeologically obscure until the late 20th century. Between 1993 and 1997, Dr. Shireen Bauer, alongside city planner George France and hundreds of Cornell University students, conducted extensive archaeological surveys across 120 acres of the Inlet Valley. Operating in consultation with Cayuga Chief Frank Bonami and Tutelo representative Dr. Heriberto Dixon, the collaborative effort culminated in the establishment of Tutelo Park in 2006, serving as a commemorative space honoring the first stewards of the Ithaca region.